Over the last 3 years, I've had 3 different dreams around Jewish New Year, the first two and the third just in May this year, that have depicted increasing levels of sexual depravity, illicit acts in public, or the depiction of illicit acts in public, which have been, in my framework, out of place and leading toward a more extreme public expression of sexual sin in terms of the Christian framework. This is the spiritual pathway that Western civilization is walking down. It's a satanic trinity, Baphomet, sexual worship, the worship of carnality as the highest form of sexual and spiritual encounter that humans are capable of. It's the end of liberalism, the end of the pursuit of atheistic humanism that leads toward a fullness of man through the carnal nature. And it is subjecting yourself and the culture to Satan's rebellion, the rebellion of the kingdom that seeks after the carnal will, the carnal nature of man, rather than acceding to the holiness of God the Creator and submitting to Him as the Creator of all things, the rule maker, and ultimately the judge. So this idea of carnal sexual illicit acts, casting off all restraint and any rules of society, is a subjective way of framing life and your experience in life and your responsibility to society. And this particular framework, this philosophy, the sex magic, Aleister Crowley, Hollywood culture, is postmodernism, really. It's about the fact that a thing is only wrong if we say it's wrong. If society frames a thing as wrong, then it is wrong. And because society frames things in that way, right and wrong, people experience guilt. And if it were not for the social mores and limitations and restrictions, then people would be free of guilt and they'd be able to live quite normally within those styles of life. So sexuality, homosexuality, animal sex acts, pedophilia, all of those things are just a preference. They're not right or wrong in this framework. And so this is the direction that the lobby of the LGBTQ society are wanting to walk things increasingly. And it's a subjection to what looks like the image of the Baphomet, which has become more and more common in our culture. We see it a little bit more popping up with the fingers up and down, the animal man spirit with female and male sexual organs. There's children standing beside him, and the phrase is as above, so below. That means in the satanic demonic kingdom, bringing that to earth. That's what this spirit is really all about. And this is the word that I received this year about that spirit. Bestiality is the next thing they want to assimilate into mainstream culture. The Baphomet is the map, the child attracted carnal animal spirit. And I asked why. He says because it's profane like all the other things they love to do, vile things. Antichrist abominations include all these things: illicit acts, sex changes, animal and child sacrifice, drunken revelry, sexual decadence, power, lust. No limits is the God that they worship. And bloodlust is also part of this, which is about human sacrifice through war. So that's what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. People are being thrown into the cooking pot, the human sacrifice, in a most horrible loss of life. 250,000 people already, it has been reported from the Ukrainian side, and that's not including the Russians, or the injured, which is maybe up to 500,000 people, through a war that really makes no sense at all, but is part of this spirit of domination, destruction, and bloodlust. So the 3 dreams I've had, they have become increasingly decadent, extreme. The first one, I see pornographic images in a child's textbook, in a high school textbook, and my reaction was, this seems really out of place. And a sex act between a baby and a man, that seemed again an image that was completely extreme and out of place. And the next image was a man in public with a toddler who was performing a sex act on the toddler as if he was sucking on a dummy. This is a 2-year-old. And the man was totally oblivious to the fact that it was really out of place and inappropriate. My reaction as a mother was, do you understand what you're doing with this child? And this man just had no shame at all publicly about this child behaving in such a way. The third dream was actually literally about the beast and a sex act with the beast, which is really the headship that I'm speaking about now. This is the Baphomet. Sexuality under the kingdom of the beast will be completely perverse, and increasingly that's the way our society is walking us to throw off all restraint and all limitations, to indulge the carnal nature and to act out in ways that defy the moral code and the law of God. That is Satan's realm, and it's now becoming mainstream culture in the West. So we should expect to see increasing degrees of these kinds of acts and this push toward even bestiality in the mainstream culture being adopted. So get ready and stay in faith. It is not God's will for us to participate in these things. It is His will for us to be washed clean and to be chaste, a bride that's waiting for the bridegroom to come to consummate the wedding. That is the image that we have of Christ's return. He is coming for a pure, spotless bride. And so the opposite of this defiling sexual spirit that has no limits is the bride of Christ. And this season is a season of extremes. So either you choose to be defiled and to walk along the mainstream, or you choose to be sanctified and set apart and washed clean of those acts which are of the carnal nature, where we indulge the flesh and the desires of the flesh and subject that to rebellion, satanic domain, or we subject ourselves to the will of God, and increasingly we come into higher and higher levels of encounter with the spirit realm and holiness in His kingdom, which is about being undefiled, washed clean, repented and saved. So God bless you, and stay in His grace. Amen.